on a single Friday morning in October 1307, over 2,000 of the most battle-hardened soldiers in the world were arrested simultaneously across France. And not one of them fought back. They were expecting it. Someone had warned them. But who and why didn't they run? The Knights Templar had existed for nearly 200 years. They were untouchable, a military order answering only to the Pope, richer than most kings, with castles from London to Jerusalem. So how did the most powerful private army in history simply cease to exist in a matter of months? It started with one man's greed and one man's desperation. King Philip IV of France was completely broke. He'd borrowed enormous sums from the Templars to fund his wars, and he had absolutely no way to pay them back. There's a saying, if you owe the bank a little, it owns you. If you owe it everything, you own it. Philip had already tried this playbook before. He'd expelled every Jewish banker in France and seized their assets. Then he did the same to Italian moneylenders. The Templars were simply next. But they weren't ordinary bankers. They had an army, fortified compounds, and 2 centuries of political power. He needed a different approach. The weapon Philip chose was rumor. Starting around 1305, whispers began circulating that the Templars conducted blasphemous initiation rituals, spitting on the cross, worshipping a severed head called Baphomet, performing obscene acts in secret ceremonies. Nobody could verify any of it. That was almost certainly the point. Philip had a critical ally inside the church, Pope Clement V, a Frenchman he'd essentially installed in the papacy. Together they planned something unprecedented, a simultaneous kingdom-wide arrest of every Templar in France. The sealed orders went out to every sheriff and lord. They were only to be opened on the morning of October 13th. Here's the thing that historians keep coming back to: the Templars' fleet. La Rochelle was their main Atlantic port, home to at least 18 heavily armed warships and an unknown quantity of treasure. When Philip's men arrived that morning, every single ship was gone, vanished without a trace, never found. The fleet disappeared the night before the arrests. That means someone inside Philip's inner circle had leaked the plan. The Templars had enough warning to move the ships and presumably treasure, but not enough time or not enough will to move the men. The brothers who stayed behind were arrested, imprisoned, and tortured. The interrogations were brutal. Under torture, dozens of Templars confessed to everything: the blasphemy, the idol worship, worse. But torture confessions are meaningless as evidence, and even Philip's own inquisitors knew it. Several knights who confessed later publicly recanted, knowing recantation meant being burned alive. Some chose the fire over the lie. The Grand Master of the Templars, Jacques de Molay, had been lured to Paris under false pretenses. He'd been asked to serve as a pallbearer at a royal funeral. When he arrived, he was arrested. De Molay was 70 years old, a soldier since boyhood. Philip wanted him to confess publicly, legitimizing everything. De Molay initially confessed under torture. Then he recanted. Then he confessed again. For 7 years, Philip kept him imprisoned, trying to extract a final, public, definitive admission of guilt. In 1314, a church commission was about to sentence him to life imprisonment, when de Molay did something that shocked everyone in that courtroom. He stood up and declared his innocence. In front of the king's representatives, the Pope's delegates, and a crowd of thousands, the Grand Master denounced his confessions as lies extracted by pain. He said the Templars were pure. He knew exactly what this meant. He was burned at the stake that same evening. According to multiple contemporary chronicles, as the flames rose around him, de Molay cursed both Philip and Pope Clement, saying both would stand before God's judgment within a year. Pope Clement died 33 days later. King Philip IV was dead within 8 months. Medieval people didn't think that was a coincidence. But the order itself, what happened to the thousands of Templars who weren't in France? Outside Philip's reach, the picture gets complicated and fascinating. In Portugal, the king simply renamed the Templars the Order of Christ. They kept their lands, their ranks, their mission. Vasco da Gama sailed under their cross 2 centuries later. In Scotland, the story gets stranger. Scotland was under papal excommunication at the time, which meant the Pope's arrest orders technically had no legal force there. Dozens of Templars are believed to have fled north. And in 1314, just months after de Molay's execution, a mysterious group of warrior knights appeared at the Battle of Bannockburn. Robert the Bruce was outnumbered. The English were about to break through. Then, at the critical moment, an unknown cavalry force hit the English flank and turned the entire battle. Scottish chronicles call them simply a company of unknown knights. Some historians believe, though cannot prove, they were Templars, fighting their last battle. Rosslyn Chapel in Scotland, built in 1446 by descendants of Templar knights, is carved with symbols that shouldn't exist. There are depictions of corn, American maize, carved into stone columns decades before Columbus sailed. Either the stonemasons had prophetic visions, or someone had already been to the Americas. Someone with ships. Then there's Switzerland. In 1307, the exact year of the Templar arrests, 3 small mountain cantons formed an alliance that would become the Swiss Confederation. They immediately became famous for 2 things: fierce, unbeatable soldiers available for hire, and an absolute non-negotiable policy of banking secrecy. Sound familiar? The Templar banking system was genuinely revolutionary. You could deposit money in London and withdraw it in Jerusalem without carrying a single coin. They invented the letter of credit, essentially the first checks. Modern banking traces a direct line through Italian merchants who learned from Templar methods. Their financial system outlived their order. The Freemasonry connection is where history gets loudest. Masonic tradition claims descent from the Templars, though official historians dismiss this. But consider, Freemasonry uses architectural symbolism, specifically references to Solomon's Temple, the Templars' original headquarters. Both organizations structure themselves in secret grades. Both emerged most powerfully in Scotland. In 2001, a Vatican archivist found something extraordinary buried in the secret archives. A document called the Chinon Parchment, dated 1308. It was a record of a secret papal hearing, and it showed that Pope Clement had privately absolved every Templar of heresy. He knew they were innocent. He dissolved them anyway. The Chinon Parchment changes everything. It means the entire trial was theater. Philip got what he wanted: the Templars' wealth and their erasure from power. The Pope got to keep his position, and the Templars got scattered to the winds, declared guilty of crimes the Church secretly knew they hadn't committed. It was a state-sponsored destruction. So what really happened? The Templars didn't disappear. They dispersed. Some absorbed into other orders. Some fled to Scotland, Portugal, and beyond. Their ships went somewhere. Their treasure went somewhere. Their knowledge of banking, navigation, architecture, organization quietly rewired European civilization in ways we still live inside today. Jacques de Molay burned on a small island in the Seine River in Paris. That island still exists. Today, there's a park there, and if you walk to the western tip at dusk, you'll find no memorial, no marker, just the river moving past. The most powerful order in medieval history, and they left almost no trace. Almost.